late, just so everyone can get here. We'll probably start around like 4:03 or 4:05 Eastern time before we get started. And definitely we'll wait until Irfan can get here. There we go. So for those of you guys who are just getting in right now, I think we're going to plan to start in about 3 minutes just to make sure everyone has a chance to get into the room. We'll get started around 4:03, I think. Also, I just want to make sure, yeah, there's Irfan, he's here. All right, we got all the candidates are here, so that's always a good start to a debate. Yeah, and in about 3 minutes, I'll go over some of the rules, and this should be a really good time. For those of you who are just getting here, we'll get started in about 2 minutes. I just want to make sure we give everyone a chance to get in. We'll get started around 3 minutes after the hour. All right, since there's been a real slowdown in dings as people are getting here, I think I'm just going to start by doing the rules and we can get started. Welcome everyone to the annual Student Government Co-Presidential Debate. This is the first Zoom format debate that we've had. I'd like to thank you all for coming. The rules for the debate were agreed to by both sides in advance. And we want to keep things on a schedule. So I'm going to be keeping time on my phone. So if it looks like I'm not paying attention, it's probably because I'm just looking for timing on my phone. When there are 10 seconds left in each round for the speaking time, I will count down with my fingers, and then I will ask the candidates to quickly conclude their thoughts. If a side that is speaking second on a question directly criticizes the other side's candidate or their policies, there will give rise to a 1 minute for rebuttal for the person or party that was criticized, and that'll be at my discretion what gives rise to that. And in terms of questions, the structure will be 5 minutes opening statements for each side, and then each individual candidate will be asked a question about their leadership approach, where they'll have 2 minutes to respond. Then there will be 3 substantive questions. That's where the audience can come in. If you would like to ask a substantive question, please chat it to me privately. I have questions that are set to go in the event that we don't get any questions asked. But if you would like to participate by asking a question, you can chat it to me. And if I like it, which I'm sure I probably will, feel free to send it my way. There'll be 3 substantive questions that can be answered as a team for 3 minutes, and then a final closing question that also will be 3 minutes long. So feel free to chat me questions, and we'll get started right away, unless there are any questions from the candidates. All right, seeing no questions from the candidates, we're going to begin the debate by having an opening statement from Faith and Irfan, and they have 5 minutes, and you can begin at your leisure.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Josh. Really appreciate you creating this platform for us. And thank you to all of you for being here today. We really appreciate your Friday afternoon time. Really love to see all the turnout and all the engagement to hear our ideas. I think there are 2 incredible tickets, and I'm just excited for you to hear our ideas today. So a little bit about myself. My name is Irfan Mahmoud. I am a 2L. Along with Faith, I am super excited to be running for student government co-president for the upcoming year. I think we have an incredible opportunity to kind of remake and rebuild the culture to be better as we return to campus and as we welcome the rising 2Ls for the first time, transfer students, LLMs, and of course the new 1Ls, which are being admitted right now. So we're really excited to take advantage of that opportunity for sure. A little bit about myself. I'm from St. George, Utah. My family originally comes from Bangladesh. Both those kind of heritages are very important to me and kind of have shaped who I am when I came to campus, and all the homes that I found on campus, from Apalsa to First Class to Lambda, Salsa, Malsa, you name it. Like, these are the people that I found and have made me feel at home and made me feel comfortable on campus. And that's why I'm here. That's why I fight for what I do. And that's why I want to make Harvard fun and inclusive and make our law school experience in the next year just that. And I will say that I think it's really important that we take this moment to also recognize the difficulty of this year, the inequities that this year has raised as we consider our ideas and our platforms as we go forward. And so that's why I'm here, and that's why I've run. I'll pass it to Faith.
Hi, my name is Faith Jackson. I am a 2L who had the pleasure of being in section 3 with Irfan. I will say that I do love my running mate, and I apologize that my background only says vote Faith. Please vote for both of us. I am in transit as a result of a delayed train, but we make it work because we are super excited for student government. I am from Prince George's County, Maryland, a majority Black suburb of Washington, D.C. And my dad is Nigerian, my mom is Jamaican. And so I too have really leaned on my identity and finding communities at Harvard, whether it is the Harvard African Law Association or BOLSA or Texas Club, which I'm a treasurer of after having done my military training in Texas. I am super excited to do things including like planned section events. We actually planned the first ever section retreat with some funding from HLS last year. And it's something that we definitely want to continue to do and actually spread to the entire school as we return to campus ideally. I'll kick it back to Irfan to talk a little bit more about our platform.
Yeah, so you'll have seen our platform, and you can see it on the screen right now, is to make HLS fun and exclusive. And we haven't chosen these words just because they're cute and they happen to start with F and I, like our first names. But really, those 2 words are very important to us. And that's because we want to make HLS a place that's exciting for everyone, and it's just a good place to be. Law school is not easy, as we all know, throughout, whether it's 1L with classes or 2L and 3L as you get passionate about different clinics or continuing to take different classes or work on externships. but we want to make it a fun experience. It's probably our last time in school, last time in grad school. It's supposed to be fun. We're supposed to get to know each other and build lifelong connections. And so we really want to do that, but we also want to do it in a way that makes everyone feel included. So we have some sort of unity within the student body and within the school. And so we're really excited to do that. And it means for us that we not only have ideas, but we take our ideas and we put them into implementation. And I think that's really important. So as you kind of go through this debate and as you go through the campaign, think about the ideas that you like across both the tickets, and then also be sure to think about which ticket you think is going to be most likely to implement the ideas that are important to you and are going to be best equipped to do so. I think that's definitely important as we think about what we want campus to look like when we go back, right? We want to make sure we have a good time, and we want to make sure we do it in a way that everyone can feel comfortable joining in. And that's something that we've done throughout this year in our various roles. We wanted to make sure people have fun, however they felt comfortable having fun, but we wanted to make sure to include others. So one small example, like we had a section reunion, but we wanted to make sure that we made everyone feel included. So we had like 60, 65 people come on Zoom. We started on Zoom. And then we had various meetups kind of all over wherever people are. And so if people felt comfortable doing that with public health guidelines early on in September, then sorry if you heard that call coming in, it's my mom. But so we felt like we wanted to include everyone, but we also wanted to make sure everyone had fun. And so that's what we were running on. And we hope you like that idea. Thank you. Thanks, Josh.
Perfect timing. Next up, we have the opening statement from Avery and Gabe.
Hey guys. So first things first, thank you so much for being here on a Friday afternoon, no less. I know everyone's probably super Zoom fatigued, so I figured I'd point you to our socials so you can distract yourselves even more during the debate. You can find us on Instagram or online, and it's a great place to get acquainted with us. And we have our full bios on there where you can learn everything about us. But just a little bit about me. I'm Gabe. I'm a 1L. I'm from Section 7. Shout out to all my Section 7 people who showed up for me. That means so much. But this year has been incredibly difficult, and being connected to my section, to the student government community, to Lambda, where a huge portion of my friendships and my heart have been this last year, being connected to other students is what's really given me the strength to do this online year. And HLS is truly her students. And we show up for each other in ways that the university doesn't every single day. And it's truly incredible to be a part of that community. You guys humble and astound me every single day. And this group of resilient students that we have that have been through this year together, we're now at a crossroads. And we're headed into a year where there will be no student who's been on campus for a full year. When we're back on campus this fall, we'll all be kind of new to this. And we need to make sure first and foremost that an on-campus fall actually does happen. The undergraduate campus has come out and said in full force that they're going to make an in-person fall happen, but HLS has given us no such assurances. So the student government election is next week, and if elected, Avery and I would begin our term on April 5th. And as soon as we're elected, from the very first meeting, we'll begin advocating heavily that we need to be back on campus, that we need to do it in a way that is safe for everyone and also equitable. We need to create a plan. And Avery and I have actually done that. We've created a comprehensive reopening plan that includes social life, academic life, and safety planning. And that's part of what we're going to be pitching to DOS and really advocating heavily for you guys. Like Faith and Irfan have mentioned, our social lives are really important. And as a 1L, I definitely feel like I've missed out on a lot this year, which is why Avery and I have a 1L on our ticket, because I know the longing for all that community and all of those social events that we missed out on. And I'm going to make sure that we get them next year. We also want to ensure that for 2Ls and for 3Ls, that they get the events like halfway through Harvard, and also a makeup commencement ceremony, so they're not just left out in the cold because they happen to be graduating in a year when there was a pandemic. But there's also other considerations like academics. A lot of us feel like we've missed out on relationships with our professors in person because it's been hard for us to do office hours and things like that. We want to make sure that the university is sponsoring increased office hours, coffee chats, and lunch meetings, and that students are oriented to all of the school's academic resources when they're back on campus. And there's safety concerns. We need to make sure that there's free 24-hour testing for HLS students, a flexible recording policy that includes recordings for our immunocompromised and disabled students, and we need to begin lobbying that the school will open up on-campus housing that's safe and affordable for everyone. So I'm going to pass it over to Avery to talk about our goals for after we're safely back on campus.
Hi all, I'm Avery. I'm really stoked to be here. I'm from Tallahassee, Florida. I'm a 2L from Section 1, so we've got Section 1 and Section 7, so nice bookends. So I wanted to say that our top priority is getting back on campus safely and inclusively. But we also have a ton of plans for once that happens. So the first thing is that we're motivated by a bunch of beliefs. Our biggest belief is that students should be everywhere that decisions are made. So I went to the University of Florida, and at the University of Florida, the schools are run by a bunch of committees. From the art committee to the board of trustees, there's a student everywhere. We're stakeholders and we should be on these committees at HLS as well. We also want to be part of student activism. We've written resolutions in the student council and fought for student activism already. And if you visit our website, you can see the list of things that we support and want to fight for. And then finally, we want to reform student government to have student organizations on the student council, because that's where 2Ls and 3Ls interact with HLS at the student organization level. But I want to make a pitch for why we would be great student body presidents. First, we have the experience. We've been on the student council all year advocating for student concerns. Second, we've done the homework. We've met with all sorts of student government leaders and student organization leaders. And then finally, we have a plan. We have a team, a platform, and we're ready to reopen. We ask for your vote. Thank you.
Okay, next we're going to move into the leadership approach questions. And our first question is going to be for Faith and Avery in that order. And the first question is, talk about a time that you have picked up Slack in a group or team project. How is this experience going to inform the way that you lead student government if elected?
Thank you for that question, Josh. And before we get into community, I just want to make sure that the transfers Section 8 know that they're a very important part of our community. Shout out to the Section 1 through 7 bookends. I like that a lot, but also want to make sure that transfers know we know they're here and we love them. And so in terms of a time where I picked up Slack, I would definitely say that I would go back to my first year at the law school when I was the events co-chair for our section. And it's one of those things where a lot of us go through the process where we sign up for a bunch of things and then studying for exams hit and people start dropping, and it's understandable. And I don't know if it's the military in me or what, but I'm just like, my grades will slip before I let things drop. And honestly, I still have a job, P's, get degrees. And so one of the things was just making sure that we hit my 3 biggest priorities, which is something that I find very important, not just setting ideas, but executing. The first was having these bi-weekly section events where people are able to meet in small groups, especially for those who are introverts and are not the ones who want to go to big things. The second was actually having a section-wide event in Martha's Vineyard where we stayed over for a night. I was able to find a beach house that we can all stay in, and we had 50 people attend. And it was an awesome event because when you do smaller things, you tend to invite people who you're closer to, and there may be some people who are introverts who are not included. And so I thought that was awesome. And then the third thing was working with Irfan to get make sure that everyone was able to get to Harvard, Yale. It's a thing where if you're 1L, you don't know what that is, but it's actually the one time we have school spirit, in spite of the fact that we're all a bunch of nerds. And so it was a sort of thing where we went from 4 events co-chairs to 2. But once we had the 2, I first picked up the slack by making the calls myself, but more importantly, by working with the person who joined our team and realizing that we could delegate. They could call for Harvard Yale buses while I called for Martha's Vineyard. And it's something where community was important in our section, and I would bring that to the HLS community at large.
Thank you very much. Next we have, I believe I said, yeah, Avery is next. Same question. Do you need me to repeat it, Avery?
No, I think I'm ready.
All right, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, and I want to respond to the transfer bit. I know some transfers don't like being called Section 8, and some just like being called transfers. But I do want to reiterate that I met with the president of Section 8 today, and we had a really long conversation about the thing that transfers care about. So I hear you too. But I want to go into picking up slack, and I want to kind of de-emphasize the picking up slack bit, but I want to emphasize a time where I took initiative this year in student government. At the beginning of the year, we had a totally reoriented student government set of priorities. And it was because we went online, we had trouble communicating with people. And so I helped set up a group that did outreach, and it was called the Outreach Committee. Josh was on it. And we ended up producing a big white paper that said what our priorities would be. And we've worked on those priorities throughout the year. So it's not a time where there was really slack in student government, but it was a time when I was able to help pull through a priority in student government this year. So that's something I'm proud of. It's something that we're going to continue working on. And we're going to make sure that it happens with these platform points, which you can see again right here.
All right. Next, we have a question. It will be for Gabe and then for Irfan, and it's another one of these leadership approach questions. The next question is, how would you approach your role with the administration to help implement your policy and advocacy goals if you elected to be co-president?
Oh, I'm so glad that that is my question, because that has been almost my singular focus for all of 1L. So there's actually several other of the 1L representatives that are here in the kind of debate room today, but the coalition of 1L representatives, so all across the 7 sections who get representatives on student government, we really came together this year and had a huge amount of influence in terms of getting the voices of 1Ls heard by administration. We work together to poll our sections, to get anecdotes from our sections, to get statistical data about our sections and feed that to DOS so that they could hear about the things that 1Ls were really struggling with, namely the fact that we were terrified of LPs, that we're concerned about recordings, and that our mental health is really bad. A lot of us are really struggling with mental health concerns as a result of being so isolated and having a difficult time this year. So I'm definitely someone who is ready to stand up to DOS. We have a new Dean of Students coming in this year. I think that's an incredible opportunity for us. Someone who is ready to hear from students with a fresh perspective, hopefully, that we can work with and create, like forge a new relationship with. And I've had a whole, almost a year at this point of working with DOS and learning how to talk in ways that we're hoping that DOS will be able to hear. Student activism is something that we have a strong legacy of at HLS, but it's not always heard and responded to by the Dean of Students office or by the administration. One thing that's really cool about being student body co-president is that you get a weekly meeting with the Dean of Students office where you get to channel student concerns directly up to administration. And if we are elected, the thing that we're going to do is directly funnel up student activism, working alongside student orgs so that the activist efforts that they are taking are going directly to the ears of the Dean of the Students office and lobbying hard for those things. So I have experience working with DOS and I will continue working with them and pushing them.
Thank you. Next, we have Irfan.
Thanks for this question, throwing me back to all the behavioral questions for consulting interviews. With the administration, as anyone who's worked with the administration for any extended period of time, you know that their favorite answer is no. They say no to almost all student requests. You can be in all the meetings, you can bring all the data. They will say no. That is their MO, but you cannot take no for an answer. You have to push, you have to work with the administration, you have to work over the administration, you have to work around the administration, you have to get things done. Being told no is never an excuse to not actually make change, no matter the circumstances. And so I learned that in my first year. I was a 1L rep as well, working on student government. I had priorities from my section, one of which was to get free headshots. EIP, back when we thought EIP was going to be coming up over the summer, people were like, I don't have headshots, I don't have anything to put on my Gmail or to put on my resume or whatever it is. And so I went to the administration and they kept saying no. They said, no, we don't have the funding. No, we can't do this in HLS property, et cetera. I just got told no, no, no. What did I do? I didn't take no for an answer, just go back to my section and said, the administration said no. I went to the COOP, I got private funding, I got them to give $2,000. I set up a room, I found a photographer, got 300 students free headshots. And it took a lot of work, took a lot of time, but that's the grit that you need to actually get things done. When we were told, Faith and I, we were told, no, we can't do section retreats. We saw across the river at the business school sections, we're doing retreats. We were like, why can't we do that? We were told financing, DOS doesn't fund this, fund that, etc. We kept going. We're like, okay, we'd like to see the rules. We full on lawyered it. We're like, okay, where are the rules? What exactly can we finance? What can't we finance? We saw student orgs doing trips. So we're like, they must be financing this somehow. At the end of the day, as Faith said, we took our section to Martha's Vineyard, paid for transportation, paid for the place, and all with DOS money, all with our section funds. So never take no for an answer. That's my goal with the administration. If you want to see things get done, you will find a way to creatively do it. You'll work around the rules and you will make it happen.
Thank you very much. Next, we're going to move in to some of the policy questions. The first team that is going to have 3 minutes to split the time, whoever they choose, is going to be Avery and Gabe. The first question is going to be, what changes would you like to see the school implement in the area of academic affairs related to faculty hires, curriculum, or grading?
Sure. So one of the things that we have been advocating for, some in student government this year, but it's definitely something that student orgs have been advocating for a really long time, is hiring more Latinx faculty and staff and hiring more CRT professors and professors who are teaching CRT classes. That is something that there's a long legacy at HLS of talking about, and there still has been very little movement. I actually sat in on the curriculum committee meeting last semester and just a few days ago, where we talked about the issue of Latinx faculty and staff. And the curriculum committee continues to make excuses for why there aren't professors that are diverse professors that are regular parts of the HLS community that are doing more than just teaching a reading group or coming in to do like a specific event. They're actually tenured professors. I think the issue that Professor Cornell West was denied tenure consideration is appalling and is something that HLS needs to really take seriously. So again, student activism around issues like curriculum are really important to us. I think that the grading policy is something that 1Ls really struggled with this year. The possibility of there being LPs, it was very difficult. And through our activism, we were able to, as a part of my section, get most of our professors to commit not to giving LPs this year. And I think it took a huge load off of a lot of us 1Ls. And I'd like to see that expanded for the 1L community. Our peer school, Yale, they don't do grades the first semester. I think that it would be perfectly reasonable for us to have a similar policy. I'll switch it over to Avery.
Yeah, and I also think we've talked about how to get this done in our platform. We need to have students on these hiring committees, right? This is something that we can do just to at least have student voice consistently through. We also want to fight for grading transparency. There's so many rumors out there about, professors can it's discretionary to give an LP. What if it's a visiting professor? Can they give LPs? These are all questions that we have, and I think they cause way more anxiety than they need to. We can go in, if we can have clarity on these issues, we can get some movement. Also, one little silly thing is the fact that grades drop during J term when we're all in the cafeteria all at the same time. Oh my gosh, the room goes silent. It's the most awkward thing in the world. These are little changes that we can push, and it comes from having a consistent relationship with DOS and trust. And I think, one other point is on our platform already, we have a chief of staff candidate. And Diego was in all of these meetings last year. Diego's agreed to come back on our team. He trusts us. He knows what we're fighting for. He's been in those meetings. And that consistency is going to matter going forward to get these things done.
Okay, next we have Faith and Irfan. Either of you can let me know if you need me to repeat the question.
No, thank you so much, Josh. So I do not need you to repeat, and I'm going to jump ahead. And the first thing I'll say is that actually, on Avery's point on a silly thing, I actually don't think that's silly at all. I think it's one of those things that actually contributes heavily to our mental health issues when you're you're forced to compete against one another. Okay, so now, sorry, I'm telling someone to close the window, my bad. Okay, so I just want to talk about 3 different things. So first, we're talking about faculty, right? So I definitely believe that we need to not only hire faculty of color, but we actually need to keep them here. Gabe mentioned Professor West. I want to just emphasize how egregious it is when you get into the details of it. This guy is one of the most cited scholars in academia, and he is someone who is twice has been denied tenure from Harvard while still having tenure at Princeton and other colleges, up to 4 universities at the same time. And it's because of how controversial he is. Why is he controversial? Because he's a Bernie bro. Meanwhile, we have a professor who's literally saying that people who are forced into sexual slavery did so consensually. So I think it's one of those things where not only do we have to consider who are we hiring, but we need to consider what viewpoints are we protecting. And when it comes to viewpoints, another thing I would consider is not just identity, but also, are we having professors on reproductive justice and topics like that? The second thing I want to talk about is curriculum. One thing that I think is actively terrible is the fact that Harvard Law School, not only are we the only school that, unlike our peer, not the only school, but not unlike our peer, we have grades our first semester, but we do so while having an 18 credit load. One thing that Irfan and I looked into when talking about this topic last year is that we actually got special permission from the ABA to have 18 credits as a first year, so you could do LRW. And that's while LRW is only worth 2 credits. That class was a nightmare. It is worth way more than 2 credits. And so that's something where when you think about curriculum and you think about mental health and balancing, that's a huge thing to consider. And the last piece with grading is something that was mentioned. LPs are very, very problematic in terms of the fact that we don't know how people get it. I also don't know the logic of it. I mean, like, logic games is my strongest section at LSAT, and I don't know how you can kind of pass and more so pass and less pass. Does not make sense to me. And the transparency issue is huge with it when you have people who believe that the reason they didn't get a firm job is because of the LP. And as someone who wants to improve in a lot of my classes, when I have no idea how people are grading and the only thing we have is an exam to go based off of, that's completely an issue. And so I think that these 3 issues in terms of 1, hiring and keeping certain professors, 2, having a curriculum that actually weights things based on how much they're worth, including LRW, and 3, grading that it's both transparent and considers the fact that some of these grades don't actually mean things in the real world, is something that I would definitely like to consider. And I'll pass my time over to Irfan to add anything else.
Yeah, no, I think that was terrific. I think we need to fight like hell to keep Professor West, to tenure Professor Ahmed. We tried and we fought to tenure Professor Garcia Peña, but we need to keep fighting for these viewpoints and for these different identities that we need represented on our campus, just like Faith said very well. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you very much. Our next question, since we're going to be rotating who goes first and second, will be again for Faith and Irfan first. The second question is, what initiatives do you support to build community and promote positive mental health in the year ahead?
All right, I can go first on that one. I think one thing that's really important that we've heard from a lot of 1Ls so far is that there's a big divide between people who are on campus and have been able to see other people and meet their classmates versus those who are not able to come on campus, and also cross-section bonding. I think that's always a problem every 1L year, but of course, especially so this year. So we want to do, cross Rising 2L events, something like a beach trip or something where there is something else that's a focus. So you can go and splash around in the ocean or something like that. But it also gives you a chance to meet people without having awkward interactions. As Faith had mentioned before, we want to do lots of different initiatives. Again, small initiatives that can have big impacts. So things that our undergrad institution did was give funding to different students to go out to eat at the North End, right? Not every student can afford to do that. Rich students are doing that anyway and making friends. Students with lower means are not able to do that as often and as freely. So having a fund to do that. When we're back on campus, you guys will see there's lots of events that we do that require you to buy tickets. And those tickets are not always very cheap. And so creating a fund to give low-income students, especially first-class students, an opportunity to access funds, financial assistance to attend those events, which are an important part of the social experience and the social cohesion of these events and of HLS as a whole. So having those kinds of things are really important. Beyond that, I think it's really important for us to think about mental health more intentionally, right? Of course, we want to make sure everyone has a good time and make sure that people like being at HLS, but mental health is a health concern and it's a public health concern. There's been a lot of data that we've collected at HLS that our predecessors have all collected that have not been taken action on. We have seen that people want CAMs of color or mental health counselors of color. People want more access to their student insurance to be able to get more visits, especially in times of need. People want to be able to see out of network, which is not known that student health insurance, you can actually do that. So we need to think about mental health intentionally. We need to raise awareness about what we do have, and we need to fight like hell to get the things that we need, especially after this year where we've seen mental health has deteriorated so dramatically and for obvious reasons with everything going on. And that's not miraculously going to change when we get back to campus. So it's really important for us to be intentional about all of that. I know Faith has some ideas on this, so I can pass my remaining time to her as well.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that and want to emphasize that there's just a huge concern of mental health. And one thing to add, in addition to the idea of things like more counselors of color, is I also think there's some things that beyond that mental health scope that could help make stronger peace of mind at HLS. For example, simple things like you have to stress about where to print for your LRW thing. We each have an ID card and we could each be allocated $50 of funding in order to be able to print. These are the simple things that we'll be able to do because we're effective. And that's what I want to bring to HLS by taking these initiatives and making them come into fruition.
Thank you. Next, we have Gabe and Avery. Do either of you need me to repeat the question?
No, I think we're good. I can get started. I do want to touch on the mental health piece first. So getting the university to address mental health concerns has been something that SG has really lobbied for this year, including 1Ls. At first, the only resources we were given by the administration was a really just unappealing half-page Word document that included resources that weren't even available to us because we were aged out of them. It was really abhorrent. And student government actually worked strongly together to create a mental health resources document that was actually useful for students, and that we were able to push out to our sections as 1Ls to provide students with more knowledge just about what's available. Because we're not on campus, we can't walk into someone's office and ask for help. So maneuvering this online environment has been very difficult. So we need to make mental health resources a forefront and knowledge about what resources there are, an opportunity for students. I think that in terms of community and social life for us 1Ls, we paid full tuition this year, but we didn't get so many of the events and the hallmark things that make HLS special. And so I know that there are so many 1Ls in my section who I've talked to and in other sections who are like, I just want to have the HLS experience. I just want to have what I paid for. I just want to be able to build community. And so making huge section budgets that continue to next year for our section so they can have all of the events that they missed out on, so they can do that in-person bonding, so that they can go out together, so they can have a good time. Like, that is what creates community. I think that our sections have been incredibly resilient in the face of so many obstacles, and we have created community online. We have found ways to get through this, but reinforcing those relationships is going to be what's important for the spring semester, or excuse me, for the upcoming fall semester. I'll pass to Avery.
Yeah, and I'll take it from there. First, I want to recognize Phoebe, who is our health and wellness leader this year. Great job. But I do want to highlight a problem, which is that there used to be a working group that met every week and talked about mental health with DOS. It was started in 2018 after we lost a student to suicide. Guess what? We lost a student this year, and they disbanded that committee anyway, which is a crime. You know, it needs to come back. We need to be talking about mental health. We need to be supporting, you know, the initiatives that Faith and Irfan mentioned. I totally agree with. So we're on the same page there. And as far as supporting campus life, first off, we got to get back on campus, because being separated, being cut off from each other is only hurting our mental health. And then as far as events go, my firm belief is that student organizations do an amazing job of planning events. There are groups in HLS that we can support, we can bring funding to, and I love the idea of subsidizing some of these paid events through student government. These are things that we can do to improve the student experience while maintaining the fact that student government can be activist first.
Thank you. Once again, the first question is first response is going to be given to Avery and Gabe. And the question is simply, what will your administration do to make Harvard Law School a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive place?
Yeah, and I want to start off just frankly by naming the fact that Gabe and I are both white students, and so I think it's important to say that for a lot of diverse students, we don't bring a lot of descriptive representation. Uh, that said, diversity inclusion is something that we really do care about, and something that we want to prioritize. I was on the JEDI committee this year, the Justice, Equity, Diversity Committee. We were endorsed, our platform was endorsed by the chair. And I think that the key is there's so many student groups that are fighting for things on campus, affinity groups, student orgs, and we want to amplify those voices, not lead those voices or tell them where to go, but amplify those voices. I think our third platform point, which you can see on our website again, which is reforming the way student council is set up, is really central to this. Right now, 2Ls and 3Ls experience HLS through student orgs. It's true, through affinity groups, through interest groups, this is how they do it. And because of that, they should be represented. A lot of really amazing activism is coming from these groups. They should be on the student council so that we can be working in concert. So I think that restructuring student government so it's more responsive, doing really great recruiting across campus so student government is diverse, continuing the really great initiatives of the JEDI committee, which was led by Priya this year so well, I think that's key. So I want to pass it to Gabe.
Yeah, so totally, doubling down on everything that Avery said, and also on the issue of like inclusion being so important at HLS. Lambda's been like one of the main ways that I've connected to students this year. It's been really meaningful for me, especially as someone who came from an environment that's not very inclusive of LGBT people, and figuring out that identity in this space has been really wonderful. Lambda puts on so many good events. They do so much great outreach and making students feel welcome here. And I believe that by giving student orgs like Lambda, like Balsa, like Alianza, by giving them representation on student government and plugging them in directly, we're going to make student government more representative of students who are diverse. We're going to make their voices directly heard by DOS. So that does involve some structural change. It involves systemically changing how student government works so that diverse voices can be elevated. Right now, the system that we have set up for representation is not truly representative of the ways that all students interact at HLS, and we want to change that. So that's something that we want to do to address diversity on a larger scale than just right now. It's why we've chosen to make our platforms about student voices and not just about the two of us, is because that is truly our goal, is to elevate all student voices at HLS.
Next up, we have Faith and Irfan.
Thank you for asking this very, very important question. I think addressing this question without thinking about the institutional racism and exclusion that Harvard and HLS has been a part of is would be remiss to do so. So I think that's something that we need to center in our discussion. I think we've had lots of reckonings over the last year in how to do that, but I think there's a lot more work to be done. I think we need to talk about the renaming commission that's been launched at the university level. I think we need to have our voices heard there. I think we need to talk about the portraiture on our walls, right? We talk about diversity portraiture. We need to get color on those walls. There's incredible people in the history of HLS that are people of color and come from diverse backgrounds that are not represented in many different aspects. And I think institutional voices are really important, giving more seats to affinity groups at all sorts of different tables, giving more funding. Again, like we said, people of color, in order to have, BIPOC people, first-class people who are comfortable at HLS and at such an exclusive institution by its history, I think it's very important that we recognize that and we center those experiences, whether that's in the financial aid office, whether that's in Dean Manning's office, wherever that is. I think that's really important. I think we also need to center diversity in the student government, both representational and ideational diversity. I think it's really important to bring different voices to the table, involve people who have never been involved in student government before, bring them in because they're going to have incredible ideas. Not only that, we also need to be very inclusive to our international students. We have done a huge disservice to them this year, and it is pitiful that the university, and especially Harvard Law School, because I know other schools at the university were more inclusive to the international community, but did not leave them high and dry with things like not offering class recordings when they have to be up at 3 a.m. That's absolutely ridiculous, and not making class recordings easier to access. So they had to create their own networks. Student government has to uphold those values and those voices. We need to fight for in the international and comparative law requirement, we need to have way more than just European law and classical law that we're thinking about and centering. We need to think about African law. We need to think about indigenous law. We need to think about South Asian law, East Asian law. There's so many different areas that are just underserved, and we've heard that from student organizations already, and we're going to continue to fight for that. Faith, over to you.
Thank you, Irfan. Completely want to echo what he said about things like as simple as who is on our walls, right? But I want to talk about like 3 experiences that I've had. First, I just want to talk about being on CRCL, and we're actually thinking about legal research on the fact that law school is an inherently white space, right? And so when you think about it, it's like, who are the professors calling on when they're cold calls, right? Is there bias in that? And so it's something where it's not just the images and the portraits, but it's like, how are you also impacting the education of students of color differently, right? The second thing I want to talk about is I'm working on a copyright project where I'm trying to protect the rights of indigenous people who are connected with Harvard. How are we ensuring people like that are represented? Finally, I want to talk about HLS talks. I want to see our custodial staff represented because diversity is also economic diversity. And there are many people in the school that should be represented.
Thank you very much. In the interest of time, I think we are going to move to closing statements. Thank you for those who did submit questions. For the closing statement, we're going to ask a question that I hope you guys can respond to, but I also want to make sure that you feel comfortable using the 3 minutes to cover anything that you would like to cover. First up, this next question is going to be for Faith and Irfan. The question is simply, what are you most looking forward to about being back on campus when that does happen? You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Josh. So of course, I'm going to go back to what we started with, which is our mission is to be a more fun and inclusive HLS. And so I'll talk about 3 things with that. First, what does fun look like? We've discussed our ideas. Like, it's not just, oh, it'd be nice if we'd have fun. No, it's specific things like wanting to have a beach outing, but it's also thinking through the fact that fun is going to be different for different people. We're coming off the heels of a global pandemic, which many of us are still in, right? We are, some of us are facing it more than others, right? Some are getting vaccine while some are home with people who are not able to get out to get vaccine, but live in, work in essential jobs and things like that. And the reality is that some people next year may be willing to come to the beach and others are going to be on Zoom. And bragging on my running mate for a second, I'm going to talk about how with West Coast Club, he created an event where about 100 people came and 50 of them were on Zoom and 50 of them were outside in a park, right? And so we're ready to take those risks. And so if you want to meet up, come, but we're not going to have you inside for a super spreader. But if you want to stay on Zoom, you can also do that. And so it's being fun and also thinking through how to implement it, right? The second thing is about inclusivity. We are at Harvard Law School where I love the Bolsa Ski event and I never want anyone to take that. However, I would also like to do events with other people. I spoke to someone who's in the Disabled Law Students Association, and he mentioned that they're a great organization for advocating for their needs, whether it's recording or things like that. But it's not necessarily the organization where everyone feels a strong enough connection in order to have an event. And so with these events, it's going to this key issue of inclusivity because I don't want anyone at HLS to be excluded. And sometimes it's not even malicious, but a lot of us are introverts. I'm not, but a lot of us are. And I want to make sure these events are things that everyone at HLS are offered. And then the final thing I want to talk about is just implementation. Across this, I think one of the things that I just want to reiterate is that we've done these things before, whether it's me leading HLS talks, Irfan leading West Coast Club, or being part of many others. It's something where we know what leadership looks like. I love the Instagram meme that is like, leadership is the person who creates the Zoom meeting. And those are the simple things that I want to bring next year. Like, it can be things like, why do we have Helios, Canvas, why Harvard, like 4 different sites? That's a simple thing where, in addition to the fun and inclusivity, it's just about being able to implement those ideas, but also knowing there's simple things you can do to be more effective. Like, is sending out a calendar invite with the invitation to this debate, that's something that will increase attendance. Is, you know, raffling off something like a $50 gift card or whatever's in the rules, is that something that will increase attendance for certain things? And so it's not only thinking through 1, fun, and 2, inclusive, but 3, how are we going to implement in a way that makes HLS more effective so that we can focus more of our time on being more fun and inclusive? And I'll yield the rest of my time to Irfan to wrap our closing statement up.
Yeah, definitely echo all of that. I think the only thing that I will add is I am so excited to see all of you guys back on campus. It has been hard. I have missed so many of you, and just seeing so many of you here that I haven't seen in months, if not, going on a year. I'm really excited to see everyone back on campus to build those connections in Wasserstein and throughout. So really excited. Hope we have your vote.
And lastly, we'll hear from Gabe and Avery.
Yeah, so I'm most excited to get back to campus so that we can get back to work. Student government has a chance to reimagine itself. And I think that we're the people to do it. First off, we have a really, really strong plan to get everything done, from getting us back open to making sure student government is representative and that it's fighting for student voices. Second, I think that we're the people to do it because we've been in student government all year. We have experience. There's been a student government meeting every single week this year, and Gabe and I, except for the time before Gabe was elected, Gabe and I have been at every single one. We've been talking about these issues all year. We've been fighting for these issues all year. We're going to keep fighting for these issues next year. And then finally, we have a team that's ready to go. We've got a director of communications, a treasurer, we've got a DOSO, we've got our chief of staff ready. We're ready on day one to get started. I think if you can see by our campaign, we've taken this really, really seriously. You can visit our website to check out some of our endorsers, to check out some of our platform points, to see our plan for opening back up. You can follow us on Instagram to see similar things, but we're ready to get fighting for students.
Yeah, and I think to echo Irfan, I'm so excited to actually be in physical presence with so many of you that I've gotten to spend time with virtually. I don't know if hugs are going to be allowed, but I'm definitely going to want them. But yeah, this is just something that we're so looking forward to. And like Avery said, we've put just a ton of time into our campaign, into connecting with people, into preparing ourselves, because we really do believe that we have a mission and we have what it takes to make meaningful, lasting change at HLS. So being a student body president isn't just about being a voice for the student body, it's about being in charge of actually student government itself. And student government is its own set of shortcomings. It has its own set of strengths. We know that because we've been there all year, and we know how we want student government to be and how to make that happen. And so if you put us in charge, we're going to be ready from day one without any turnover to immediately begin implementing these things, to shift the way that student government has influence on campus, and to make the absolute most out of the opportunity that we have through this body. This body, like we said earlier, there are things that need to change about it, and we recognize that. But we also love it, we care about it, we've been invested in it all year, and we really believe that it has the power to be influential for students. So I guess if I have any remaining time, I'll just say, shout out to everyone who's been in student government this year, who's on this call. Love you guys so much, and thank you for investing your time and energy into this body that we really believe in.
I think both candidates deserve, both parties, all 4 candidates deserve a round of applause. I really want to thank them for bringing it their all today. I thought it was really impressive, and thank you all for being here in the audience. Remember that the election is next week. Please, everybody, vote and tell your friends to vote. I don't know, whoever wins, I'm excited to see what happens in my absence when I graduate. I think good things in the future. And once again, thank you to everybody.
Candidates, before you leave, could you stick around for a minute so I can take a picture of you to post on our Instagram, if that's okay with all of you?
I love photos.
Okay, excellent. All right, I'm seeing nods. Great. Okay.
Great job, Josh. Thanks for your hard work.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. You did a great job.
Josh, you should do the next presidential debate. I think you would do well, better than some that we've seen.
It's only because you guys were so nice.
I don't know when the picture's gonna be
Oh
taken.
yeah, no, I'm so sorry. I'm trying to wait for like everyone, like basically but you
Everyone
guys
else
to
to leave.
leave. But I don't want to see. I'm sorry.
Major yikes.
Great job, guys.
Like,
Good luck campaigning.
never mind.
Thank you so much. Bye.
I just think I have to stay for the meeting. You can always move people by clicking, I think, and dragging.
Josh,
that-
you're fine to stay. I would love to have you in this as well. It's just, and Noelle, I'm assuming you're HLS student government. You can stay too.
Yeah. I don't know who
Morgan, are you there?
Morgan's a friend of mine. I assume she's not there. You can remove her.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Oh, thank you, Morgan. Okay. Thanks for your patience, you guys. Okay. All righty. Big smiles, big smiles. I'll give you a countdown. All right. In 3, 2, 1. All right. Let's see what this looks like.
Awesome.
Beautiful. All right. Thanks, you guys.
Really quickly, I just wanted to say thank you guys for a great debate, and absolutely believe in your platform and trust that whoever wins, SG will be in great hands. So
Yeah, thank you guys as well. And it was really nice to see you not in person, but see you on Zoom, Gabe. I look forward to
in
meeting you
person
in
we
purpose.
can hang someday soon.
I'll look forward to that hug.
All right, awesome. See you guys.
Have a good weekend.